Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show!
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
36-yard line of Philly, shotgun snap to Hurts, dropping back, only one person rushing, Hurts looking, standing still, winding up, long pass, it lands at the 20, no one is there, zeros on the clock, it's over, the Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won Super Bowl 57 on a game-winning field goal, trailing at 10. At the halftime stop, 24-14, they go on to win 38-35. What a game.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mees. Whoa, that's a new one. Joe Mays, and sitting here with me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're just going to go with it.
See, I know this is probably inaccurate, but like, just because I know how it works, but I feel like people probably don't mess up Mays too many times.
So
I'm sure it's happened though, just because it has to happen.
Okay.
But
breaking
for me,
news: Penn State landed another commit, 4-star safety this time.
All right.
That's 3 today.
I know there are a
Not
lot
to
of
interrupt
official
you.
visit. No, that is worth interrupting me. But yeah, with Raffoff, I have heard all kinds of stuff. Actually, I had to put in like a service call for something today, and when I did, the guy, you know how they like confirm your information, and he's like, "And am I speaking to Justin Raffoff?" And I was like,
That's how you got it?
I was like, that's exactly it, actually. Like, it caught
you
me so
nailed
off
it.
guard. Because usually I
So
get
what do you get?
Oh, dude.
Raffoff?
Rafalf, you know. And you start getting all kinds of stuff with letters that are not there.
Okay, see, that's
Like,
I feel like you would have to throw more letters in there because when I look at your last name, now I've known you for 20 years, and I've heard your name said a lot.
Right.
But if I would look at that, I
know.
I don't know where else to go.
Right, and that's one of those things where, like, once people hear it and see it, they're like, oh, yeah, like, that's kind of what that is. But
So, my wife has a hilarious story on behalf of her sister. We just talked about this because it came up. We were sitting watching the graduation fireworks Friday night, and I was pulling up on my phone every so often the live stream of the ceremony that you and Jamie were at. And, you know, we would hear them announcing the names, which I know is practice with the students and going over how do you want it said, how do you say this. And back when Kelly's sister Amy, it wasn't for graduation, it was for something else. I don't know if it was an honor society thing, but it was something where the name was going to be read, and it was getting to that time, and she had to leave the auditorium or wherever they were practicing, and they were like, I have to quick go and do this. Make sure they don't say my name wrong. Her name is Amy Ross. It's like, how, and that's the point of the joke is, how do you say this wrong? And she came back, and her friend said, you know what, they said Ami Roos. Ami Roos. So, yeah, because you look at it like, how would you mispronounce that? Unless you've never spoken ever before, you would say that's Amy Ross. There's pretty simple, easy names to say. Same thing with Kelly. Not tough. My name, not tough. But I managed to mess it up tonight. So we're off to a great start. But we are talking NFL preview part 3, North Divisions. This is when I start to get really excited because no disrespect to the West Coast, but they don't matter.
right.
Chiefs, love the Chiefs. Sorry to Coach Steve and his Denver Broncos, which we need to get Coach Steve on. He might be a good guy to fill in for when you're not around in the coming months as we try to jam in these shows in between vacations and whatnot. Coach Steve might be a good one to have on. I'll see if I can get him on an episode. But and even the South Division, honestly, I might like the West more than the South. The South is just
No, I definitely like the West more than the South. South anymore too is like, there are years where it's entertaining, but
the North divisions, and obviously we're East Coast homers here, but the North divisions are always very interesting to me. Well, one, they're some of, if not the oldest football clubs around, dating back over 100 years, some 120 years, I think. So when you're talking about the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions, and then the Bengals, Browns, Ravens, and Steelers, I know Ravens a little bit more recent, but by and large, 7 of the 8 teams we're talking about are fairly old, and they have an incredible history and a lot of winning history among some of these clubs. Then there's a couple, one from each division, that do not have a lot of winning history.
Yeah.
But could we see that change this year? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Those 8 teams, 4 from the AFC North, 4 from the NFC North. We always start in the NFC. That's where we will begin. I'm going to throw that to Justin, but just remind everyone that we are wrapping up our NCAA 14 Dynasty Year 4. We just went undefeated, won the national championship 2 weeks ago when we last had a show. And we are just going to figure out if we're going to continue with Florida Atlantic for year 5 or if we're going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to hop up there, pull up the streaming feed if I can find it, and we will be on our way to that. I don't know why it's not up there. Oh, okay. So I'll let Justin start with NFC North.
All right. So, man, honestly, I feel like this is maybe one of the tougher ones because there's so many unknowns. The team that has been the most consistent. Well, I guess if you go with most consistent, it might actually be the Vikings as almost good. But I'm just taking my shots at the Vikings.
Just do that. Yeah, that's fine.
But like.
Fine
The
with that.
Packers have been right there, right? And for a long time, and maybe not the last couple of years, but for a long time, they have been the I'll believe it until I see it, kind of thing. Where we aren't necessarily rooting for the Packers, but we are kind of like on picking them until we see otherwise. Well, things have changed. Certainly things have changed, in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is out. Jordan Love is now the guy, like for now. It's going to be interesting to see. Like I am intrigued by this, and to me personally, I'm as intrigued, if not more intrigued, about this part than the Aaron Rodgers stuff. Just because that gets old pretty quick for me.
Did you get to read the Athletic article about him leaving?
No,
I know.
I didn't get to see.
It's been pending in my feed. I want to read all about it because apparently they talked to him, like on the record, and so I was very.
I saw
interested.
some of the clips from that, like the quotes from that. Basically, I feel like the relationship between Rodgers and Love may have been better than I maybe realized. I was going to say a lot of people, but I can't really speak for that. But I don't think they had a tough time. You know what I like?
Right.
It's all the other stuff that gets in the way, which honestly isn't all that surprising and is not all that uncommon in the NFL.
Oh, Jimbo Fisher was fired.
Oh, this is getting very realistic, actually. But yeah, it's one of those where it's interesting to see. Yeah, look at that climb, man. It's interesting to see where this all goes. But honestly, I don't know. Man, this is a really tough one for me.
You started at the bottom, number 4?
I am going to start at number 4, and I'm going to pick the Packers.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, I'm picking the Packers. I just don't know. Like, and this isn't all about the quarterback. I just don't know what I don't know there. Does that make sense? Like,
Texas A&M offered.
To me, that's a pretty big That's a big one. And to be clear, I used to play some of these dynasties with Texas A&M because I liked that they had a huge stadium. But
we're declining that.
Yeah, I don't feel like we go there. But I feel like the Packers are just. I just don't know. I don't think they're going to be awful. I don't think they're going to be one of the worst teams in football. But I just feel like I just don't know that they have what it takes in this division where I feel like a bunch of the other teams are all getting better.
Right.
So I'm going to put the Packers around like 7 wins or so. Like I don't think they're awful. I think they're a few games worse than maybe last year. But they lost a Hall of Fame quarterback. And I'm not saying Jordan Love can't be the answer, but right now on June 5th,
Hawaii.
Is today 5th? Is today the 5th?
Today is the 4th.
Okay. On June 4th, I can't. We just beat Hawaii in the national championship. How crazy would that have been?
Yeah.
To me, they have the most question marks, and I know that might sound crazy for this division, and I know there's probably people who disagree with that, but like to me, the most questions come with the Packers. I just don't know anything about where they are, so I'm putting them at 7 wins and in 4th place.
So 7-10 for the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah, we're getting offered to everyone. 7-10, last place for Green Bay. I mean, I don't want to see at this point now. I don't care about the Packers now that Aaron Rodgers is gone. It doesn't matter to me because he was the big thing. I have never been really a big Packers supporter, probably because I hated the quarterbacks that have been there for the last 30 years. I just couldn't stand either of them. I mean, I probably jumped up on their bandwagon when Favre was shipped out and they turned it over to Rodgers, but then Rodgers kind of sunk that ship for me pretty quickly.
Right.
So
picking up right where we left off.
So I guess I don't care if that happens. I think it would be a surprise, a shock. Was Aaron Rodgers everything there? I would love to see the Packers be decent this year, for challenge for the playoffs, even make it as the last wild card because Rodgers couldn't even do that his last year there. So that would be exciting. I don't know if I can have. So did they finish 9-8 last year or 10-7?
Let me look. I know they had a win in you're in situation.
Yeah, against the Detroit Lions, who I think are going to come up in this discussion in a bit. So
they
finished 9-8.
They finished 8-9.
They were below 500.
Yeah, so they had the tiebreaker. Well, yeah, they finished 3rd in the division last year. Yeah, they finished 3rd in the division last year because they lost to the Lions on the last game. But the Lions couldn't get in because Seattle had won, correct? Seattle winning?
Correct, yeah.
You're right, so...
Ooh, we could go to Northwestern.
Oh, man.
I mean, we already turned down Texas A&M.
Yeah,
so.
well, Northwestern only is cool to us in the sense that it's Big Ten. But, we're not going to pick them over Texas A&M.
No.
I like some of these schools shooting their shot, though.
Look, New Mexico.
I feel like more teams should do this. I feel like more teams should, reach out to, Kirby Smart.
They want us to
last year
go
and be
from
like,
Florida Atlantic head coach to Oklahoma defensive coordinator.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I didn't know they played defense at Oklahoma. To be fair, they used to.
Oh, we lost Randy Shannon, our defensive coordinator.
So, our defensive coordinator got hired to be the head coach at Arkansas.
Yes.
In the SEC. But they want us to leave to take a defensive coordinator job. Sounds about right.
Oh, they want us to be the offensive coordinator for Texas A&M. Well, we already turned down their... Oh, they also want us to be the defensive... Texas A&M just wants us bad.
It's that oil money, man. But yeah, so they were 8-9. I don't think it's a stretch to think they're about the same, and I have them a game worse. I feel like Aaron Rodgers, even last year, could easily be worth a game, so I'm putting them at 7. I think they're going to finish last.
7 wins, last place in the NFC North. Man, that would be an interesting one. So I don't think we're getting any jobs
think
here.
of the headlines that would come there. Only to be topped by if the Jets finish last in the AFC East.
Yeah, don't get me excited. So my number 4 then in the NFC North, I think I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears still.
Okay.
Because they were not very good last year.
No, I get it.
And if you have last place at 7, that means you have the Bears at least 7, if not 8 wins. And I don't know that I see that. I know Justin Fields was coming on at the end of the year, and things were looking better. I think he answered some questions for me last year, but I also worry about his health because that was an issue.
Well, yeah.
So
this is kind of crazy. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just on that topic, I don't think it's out of the question, right, that you could see 4 new starting quarterbacks in this division in 2 years. Not this season, but the next one. Depending on how things go.
Right.
The Bears have to be better, or those Justin Fields rumors will be awfully loud.
We had 3 first-round picks.
Oh, my gosh. Who were they?
My left tackle, my tight end, my wide receiver, my center, your cornerback, 2 of your defensive tackles. So the guy who tore it up
yes,
was a 7th-round pick.
Hey, all right. Someone got to steal.
Back-to-back record-setting years. Someone got to steal.
Someone got to steal.
But
you know what I mean? So,
I don't think you're off.
Love, if Love doesn't have a good year, I could see them looking to move on. I think if the Lions could look to upgrade, if they feel like Goff is kind of run its course, and the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, absolutely could move on. So
Well, he's in the final year of his contract.
Exactly, and he had that fully guaranteed one last time. So he's got that weird contract situation. So I'm not saying that I expect it. That would be kind of crazy. But it's not out of the question, right?
Right.
But even if they all don't play well, you would have someone's going to win the division and make the playoffs.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway,
it's gotta happen at some point, right?
I didn't mean to sidetrack us there, but just in terms of the quarterback play, there's a lot of unknowns in this division, and I think that adds to the difficulty of ranking some of these teams.
Yeah, so the Bears, were they 3-14 this past year? They had the number 1 pick.
Yeah,
right?
They had to be.
Traded out, picked up DJ Moore. Do I think they'll be better? Yeah, I guess I think they'll be a little bit better, but 3-14 is 3-14, and I know they're in some games that they could have, should have won.
Yeah, they were 3-14 this past year.
Okay. So.
Wow. If you look at them, though, going back to starting at the 2013 season to present, they only have 1 winning season.
Oh, in 10 years, 11 years.
And that was 2018. They were 12-4, and they lost in the wild card
to the Eagles, right?
I believe that was the double doink.
Double doink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Now they've had a couple 500 seasons in there, but yeah. I guess I knew this, but I didn't. Just doesn't pop up. The Bears have won Super Bowl. They're talked about as this legendary team.
Well, I think it's because they're old and they're in a big market. I think that's where the majority of that comes from. So, trying to offer some of these big name guys here in the off season. Want to get that strong safety for you. 77 coming in. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be pretty awesome. Yeah, Yeah. So okay. So you're gonna go with the Bears in 4th place?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bears in 4th place.
Understandable, and that's honestly, I went with the Packers. It would not at all surprise me if the Bears are still the worst team in this division.
So
they have a lot of questions. I am intrigued to see do they start to make that jump this year because they had so much cap space, they had so much
I think they're
you
going to
know,
be better. I just don't know that I see them winning 7, 8, 9 games. I think I would put them 4th place at 6-11, and I will put. Reluctantly, I think I will put Green Bay in 3rd.
Okay.
Because I want them to be better. Because I don't want Aaron Rodgers to be the reason that they had been so good and yet still failed so often over the last 15 years. They should have been better than they were, and they were always very good. It's just they couldn't do anything in the playoffs. So Chicago 6-11. I think I'll put Green Bay right there behind or in front of them in 3rd place at 7-10. So honestly, the same ranking as you had them. You have them winning seven games. I just have them in 3rd place winning 7 games. So Green Bay will be my 3. I mean, despite my hatred of the guy, the football player was very good, even though he had a bit of a decline this past year. You know, is he a 4-time MVP? Which honestly is like what seems to be the most important thing to him, the way that he's talked over the last few years.
I was going to say something, but I won't.
I'll
I'll refrain and wait till after the show. But
I know they have had issues. Oh, look at the number 2 recruiting class. No 5-stars, but 13 4-stars.
I'll take it. Building.
I know they've had issues like keeping their defenders around healthy, especially or offensive linemen, wide receivers. They've jettisoned the older ones that Rodgers wanted around. They followed him to New York, a few of them. They drafted a bunch last year. See if they have a better sophomore season in the NFL. But it comes all down to Jordan Love. And while I would love to see him step up and lead this team to 10 or 11 wins and kind of shove it in Aaron Rodgers' face, I can't predict that right now. So I'll have Green Bay in 3rd at 7-10. So who's your 3rd place?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears with 8 wins. I think they do get a bump up. Getting to 8's probably pushing it, but like just to make it work and not have as big of a cop out and be like 7 with a tiebreaker over the Packers, you know, like which I already did maybe in last week's show or the last show we did, but I just think, and maybe it comes down to we're sitting here beginning of June and like I think, right, like if the Packers and Bears have the same record where they're fighting to be 500. I feel like that feels very different for both those teams.
Right.
Now, I feel like it being Chicago, I feel like there will still be some unrest there. Like, this is taking too long, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to run off the potential for their best quarterback that they've had maybe in franchise history. You know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah.
On the other hand, I understand, like, you only have so long and, you know, how you have all these things. And we talk about, like, one of the worst things you can be is that team that has in the middle. Now they got some draft capital from trading out of that one spot, you know, so it's not all doom and gloom if they end up being like the best team to not make the playoffs, you know, or whatever.
Right.
But anyway, I think they are going to be in a similar spot to the Packers, but it will feel very different for a team that for 2 decades has been, 2.5 decades has been like running things more or less in the NFC North to, you know, the Bears coming back, you know,
right.
like I just feel like it'll feel really different and maybe that's influencing my records picks here, but I'm going to put the Bears at 8. I don't know that they actually get to 8, but I think, like I said, I think it's some of that, how it feels. It will feel different for the Bears to be pushing for 500 than it would be for the Packers to be pushing 500, because I feel like, honestly, if the Bears are around 500, there might be some fans clamoring for changes and stuff, but I think the front office and stuff, while they would never say that that's their goal, you know, I think they'd be like, okay, we're making progress, you know. Right. If they more than double their win total, you know, they'd be thrilled.
Oh, you should be.
And right.
You should be.
And so I look at it like that, and I think if the Packers are like, oh man, we missed the playoffs last year, and we missed them again, and we're still not sure about Jordan Love. Like, I feel like that's not as good for them. So that's kind of where I'm going. I'm going Bears third place at 8 wins, right there with the Packers. I just think it feels a lot different for them.
And who is your number 2 then?
All right, so my number 2 is going to be the Minnesota Vikings.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going with the Vikings at number 2.
I love it.
I'm going to go with 9 wins. And I think they're fine. I think there were a lot of holes there last year that got exposed really quickly whenever they played good teams last year. There was a lot of talk, and again, this is flipping that homer switch on right now. Like, there was a lot of talk about how the Eagles were overrated. They didn't play teams. It was whatever. Like, there's only so much you can say about that. But, like, the Eagles won those games. Like, they blew out the Vikings, and they blew out some, they won the games against those teams. Like, so whatever. I mean, they lost to the Chiefs in the end, but the Chiefs were an incredible team. They're a Super Bowl champion team. The Vikings didn't really beat a good team.
No, and then they lost to the Giants in the playoffs.
Right. So they didn't beat a good team, and they lost to a bad team when they had home field advantage. A bad team that only had one weapon. Saquon was it. I think that's about where they're at. Like, could they win more than 9? Yeah. They could do the same thing as last year, But I think they're starting to get exposed a little bit. I think they've got a question at quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a fine quarterback, but I think you need an excellent team around Kirk Cousins. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
Right? So you need an excellent team around him. I don't think the Vikings have an excellent team around him. I think they have a good team around him.
Oh, good. We don't have to cut anyone. I like
so
that.
you look at it, like, last year, you could argue, even with some of those losses where they lost to some of the teams that they, were the higher caliber teams, it's hard to argue that everything didn't go right for the Vikings last year. Like, everything went right, and it still wasn't all that good.
Well,
and so, like,
times,
how often does a team have everything go right 2 years in a row? Not often.
I said multiple times that they were frauds. Not that you disagreed with me or anything.
No, yeah.
But I tweeted out a few times, and I had Skull fans all mad at me, and I just want to be like, check back with me come the playoffs. Well, of course, none of them did.
Yeah.
No one wanted to talk about it afterwards
Crickets.
because it was an embarrassment. And then I feel like the writing was on the wall. Only people viewing the world through purple shaded glasses.
Which again, Justin Jefferson is amazing. But, like, him getting his name thrown around for MVP, no. Like, no. And I understand how people are like, well, that's because Kirk Cousins is quarterback. Yeah, exactly. But, like, that matters. You know what I mean? Like that matters. Like, he disappeared in big games, including, like, in primetime against the Eagles when, like, the Eagles shut him down. Like, embarrassingly so. Now, again, I understand football enough to know that that's not all on Justin Jefferson. But that's the point. Like, that's why he's not in the MVP running. In my MVP ballot. Was he incredible? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is he arguably the best receiver in the game? Absolutely. You can make a strong case for that. That's different. That's different from arguing that he should be the MVP. You know what I mean? Like, so I look at that. Now, they've got weapons galore. Like, they've got weapons. Absolutely. I think they've shown us who they are, and I don't know that they've done much to change that. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. Like, I feel like Kirk Cousins is at a point where, like, you have some things here and there, but, like, you don't expect him to keep, like, developing as a quarterback and making drastic jumps, correct? Like, he's at the point where you're much more likely to have a drastic decline than a drastic jump.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the team they have, he needs to take a pretty big jump up, or the team needs to take a huge jump up. And I'm just not going to bet on that. And I think they've seen their potential. Their chance was when they had to face the Eagles and a backup quarterback. And I know this was a while ago. This is 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. Their best chance was when they had the Eagles with a backup quarterback and had an early lead in that game and then threw a pick six, and it was over. The floodgates opened and got shellacked in that game. Actually, and then they've had some other good chances. They just didn't get it, didn't make it work.
All right, so
I'm going 9 wins with the Vikings
So
for 2. That was my long answer.
Packers, Bears, Vikings
Yep.
is 4-3-2.
Right.
Packers, Bears, Vikings. Mine has been Bears, Packers, Vikings. Because I railed on them all last year. They're gonna come back. They're gonna drop down. What's going on with Dalvin Cook? We didn't even say anything about that. It's like it doesn't seem like he wants to be there anymore.
When I sent that to you, that shocked me. I sent it to you not if we send each other every NFL headline, so we only send each other like 90% of the NFL headlines.
Yeah.
So
we don't want it to be unreasonable.
When I saw that, I was legitimately caught off guard. I didn't realize it was like that. I thought, now maybe that's one of those things where, he'll be in camp because they get it worked out. But like, it just doesn't seem that way right now. And while I know there's been some consistency issues, he's still a big part of that team, especially when Kirk Cousins is your quarterback. You need to be able to run the ball.
Right. And I don't even want to discuss that. The two places he wants to play are Miami or Buffalo, because that's a true love it and hate it all in one.
Right.
So,
but we also know how that would work out, right? If he goes to Miami, he'll never regain that.
He'll
form
never do
that
anything. And if he goes to Buffalo, he'll
revive his career and
he'll be amazing. Yes, that's exactly how it would work. But yeah, I'm sticking with you in the Vikings. Just there's no way they're going 13. They're not gonna be better because they shouldn't have won 13 games last year.
Right.
They were honestly, I'd say at best a 10-win team last year.
I was gonna say I could see them being a 10-win team last year.
But are they that this year? So I had 6-11 for the Bears, 7-10 for the Packers. Where am I going with the Vikings? I think I'll put them at 9-8.
Okay, so
I think
we're at the same spot there.
So is that what you said?
Yeah.
9-8. Yeah. So
4-game regression, but 1 game off of what we feel like they should have.
I felt like they were a 10-17 last year.
They shouldn't have beat the Colts.
They shouldn't have.
That was the crazy one.
Yeah, that was the insane one. Yes. They just don't inspire me. I don't think they're that great. I think in the second year of Kevin O'Connell's tenure, I think they're going to drop off. I think teams are going to have adjust to what they did. I think teams will probably realize, hey, we do need to shut down Justin Jefferson, and when you do, good things happen.
Yeah. In every big game.
Shocking, I know.
Right.
But you were all last year. You were banging the drum on the anti-Justin Jefferson,
right?
Not like against the player, but saying he didn't deserve to be the MVP.
It gets distorted too because I'm an Eagles fan,
right?
And they're like, of course you hate Justin Jefferson. Well, no, I don't hate Justin Jefferson because of that. I hate that Howie's decision on that. Like that's what I hate. Like I don't hate Justin Jefferson because of that, but like the talk of like him being the MVP is just not fair to the guys who are MVP candidates, in my opinion. But
so we both have the Lions winning the division, which this is one of those.
So
this is what I want to happen. I also look at the team and the way they finished last year, the way they came on 2 years ago, which we also kind of predicted that they would have a rough start and come out at the end. We didn't think they'd have a rough start last year, but we still thought they'd be working their way up. Right. They had a rough start, but then they had a great finish.
I was not happy at all that the Eagles were opening at Detroit last year because I was scared to death of that.
And it was proven accurate, true. That was a close game.
Yes.
Detroit had some hardships. They couldn't get things going at the beginning of the year. They righted the ship midseason, and then a Seattle loss, they would have been in the playoffs.
What sums it up is on Sunday night to end the season, Week 18, Sunday night, the Lions have, quote-unquote, nothing to play for. Their season had already been decided when Seattle won earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And they still go out there and they win. And they hold Aaron Rodgers to a terrible game. He had a terrible game. And so, you go and you look at that
scenario for a Hall of Fame quarterback.
In Green Bay, right?
In Green Bay. Lambeau.
And, so you just look at it that attitude tells you everything. It seems like it tells you everything about the Lions and what they're about, right? And I have to give credit to their coach, because like I was at first like, because he was all like, when he got there, he's all like rah rah and all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, man, I don't know if that's gonna play. Like we haven't seen it from the Lions. Like I know you're doing all this and everything, but man, the guys in that locker room seem to love him.
They do.
And that
Good Dan Campbell.
Yeah, that is. Whew. It can be powerful when that happens. Like you see it with like Andy Reid. Like, man, his guys love him. Like they love him, and those teams seem to do so well. And I know it doesn't always work out like that. Like the Raiders seem to like Rich Bisaccia, but look what happened when they got rid of him.
Yeah.
Right? They took a huge step back.
Yeah, we already said we don't think they're going to be any good again this year.
So, like, I just think it's interesting to look at, and I think they're trending in the right direction. And that's where I come back to this idea of the quarterbacks. Like, if they win with Goff with 10, if they get 10 wins, I'm going to put them at 10. Like,
I think that's where I'm going to put them at,
I'm going to put them at 10 wins, but win the division. I think that grittiness is going to come through in some of those clutch games.
And they would not be a team I want to play in the playoffs.
No.
In that wild card round.
No.
Because that's 10-7 will probably be 3 or 4, depending on what goes on in the wacky South.
But if they win the division, they're going to host that game.
Right, they're going to host that game.
Going to Detroit. When was the last time Detroit hosted a playoff game?
Got to be the 90s, right? I would
I
think.
remember
they were in the playoffs recently, but did they host?
No, I thought they played like at Dallas at least for one of those. I don't know that they've hosted. They may have. But I feel like in the 90s, I remember Barry Sanders and the Lions coming to Philadelphia for a playoff game.
Detroit's Lions haven't been to the playoffs since 2016 when they lost in the first round of the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions haven't won a playoff game since 1991. Have the Detroit Lions ever had a home playoff game? The Lions last hosted a playoff game on January 8th, 1994.
Okay, man, you know
So it would
that.
be exactly 30 years this
Right.
season.
Right.
If they would get to host a game.
Right. So, think about it. The majority of their players were not born the last time they hosted a playoff game.
Yeah.
But, like, if you look at that, like, yeah, they're not a team I would want to play. But, like, man, what if, if the offense is, like, so-so, but the defense is really good, which I know wasn't really how it always played out there this year. But, with Dan Campbell there, the defense is going to come around at some point. I know they've made some changes there, too. I would not want to play them, especially going there in the playoffs. And I wonder if they feel like, oh, man, we've got something good going. What if we add in, a quarterback here? It's just...
So the Lions lost that game they hosted to the Packers, which makes that even worse. They were actually in 3 years in a row. They then lost at the Packers the next year. And then I remember this game. They got smoked by the Eagles in Philadelphia, 58-37.
Yes, I remember that one too.
That was a wild card game on Saturday, December 30th, 1995. So that was part of the 95 season. But it was January 94, so the end of the 1993 season. They went 10-6, but they lost the wild card round to their division opponent at home. So that was their last home game. Yeah, so almost 30 years ago. It'll be 30 years when the playoffs start. So Justin and I are both calling for that drought to end this year. I just think they went 9-8 last year. I don't think calling for one more win is outlandish. I think a lot of people are going to call for a Detroit division championship.
I think the Bears are going to be better. I think the Packers will be slightly worse, ever so slightly. But I think the Vikings are going to be worse, and I think the Lions are going to be better. Like, it kind of evens out.
Yeah. So, they haven't won a championship since 1957, and of course we know that wasn't in the Super Bowl era. So it's been a while for Detroit. I don't know that at this point I'm ready to say they're the class of the NFC, like they're going to be competing to host that NFC championship game, but do I think they're making the playoffs? I do. Do I think they're winning the division? I do. So I think things look pretty good in Detroit in terms of where the rest of their opponents. I'm sure Minnesota fans are going to be are probably maybe they're loving them. They're hating it, but they're loving it because maybe that'll get the Vikings group to
Yeah.
kind of rally and overcome, like they're being slighted, which technically, yeah, they are being slighted. Everyone's kind of overlooking them, but
Yeah, imagine being slated by the Lions or
it's
by
rough.
media over by the Lions. you know.
But so I essentially I almost went up the ladder. I went 6 wins for the Bears, 7 wins for the Packers. I think I went 9 wins for the Vikings, now 10 wins. For
I
for
did the ladder. I did 7, 8,
Lions.
9,
7,
10.
7, 8, 9, 10. So I went 6, 7, 9, 10. But I think we're right there. So my dad actually did text me his NFC North predictions. He says Chicago 4th, Green Bay 3rd, Minnesota 2nd, Detroit number 1. So he and I are exactly the same. He went Bears, Packers, Vikings, Lions. So, my uncle just texted his picks. So he goes, he's with you though. He has Packers last, Bears in 3rd. We flip-flopped a little though. Lions in 2. So he is a believer in Minnesota. So Uncle Rich, you're the lone wolf on this one in the NFC North. He is the only one of our 4 to pick the Vikings to win.
I was about to comment about how, like, I'd maybe stick with me and Uncle Rich, considering how many times our names are on that trophy.
Oh, brother! If my dad's still awake, he might have something to say.
I feel
about
like
that.
I can feel the emojis through the phone. If the screen is away from me, I know the emojis that'll show if he's listening.
If he's still awake.
Right,
So
right.
we'll see if anything comes through. He gave his AFC North picks, but we'll wait until we get through some of ours at least, and maybe Uncle Rich, you can send your AFC North picks in because that's where we're at now. So Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns. Interesting.
This one is
Interesting
really...
division. I think top to bottom, I'm higher on the AFC North than the NFC North because while I don't know that I could really truly call Detroit a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
I could be you could twist my arm and I could possibly say that 2 of these teams I think could be deemed Super Bowl contenders.
And let's look at it from this point. I just said, depending on the season, any or all of the NFC North quarterbacks could be their starting job could be in jeopardy for the following season, right? I don't think that's true for any of the AFC North quarterbacks.
Right.
I feel like every one of them has a stronghold on their job for the foreseeable future.
Right.
So it's just interesting.
So we're gonna start at the bottom. Like we always do, 4th place. So here's something I read just earlier today from Pro Football Talk. It was Mike Florio, and he's reposting a report by Mike Reese of ESPN.com. 2 teams, one of which resides in the AFC North, are putting on lengthy streaks of not finishing last in their division. One of them is the New England Patriots, who have had 22 season streak of not finishing last. It last happened in the 2000 season, which was Belichick's first year as head coach of the New England Patriots. They went 5-11 and were in last place by 3 games. So the other AFC East teams were all 8-8 or better, while New England was 5-11. I remember those fun times. Those were good times. The 2000, early 2000, late 90s, early 2000s. However, for a team in the AFC North, that streak is 34 seasons since this team finished in last place. And, of course, that team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have not finished in last place in the AFC North since 1988.
2 of the teams aren't even 34 years old.
Well, now, this dates back to when there were 5 teams in the division.
Right,
so it's actually it's easier to finish in last now, and neither New England or Pittsburgh have done that in 22 years, 34 years for Pittsburgh, which is crazy.
And as crazy as it is, as quote-unquote down as the Steelers have been for a couple of years, they still haven't finished Tomlin still hasn't finished under 500.
Right. So they've been 8-8 or 9-8 and better every year that he's been there. And he's been there for what, 16 years? Like,
since I was in college.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Well, sorry. In 2006, Steelers won the Super Bowl. That was
he took over.
That was Cowher. But then the next year, yeah, bogus,
like crazy.
And then they won like a year or two.
A couple years later,
right,
and they went to another one and lost.
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
Yeah, that's
the one. You and Jamie were at the house for that, right?
Epitomizes the I win, but I lose.
You win
Because
and-
I was
I've
rooting.
won, but
I
at
was
what
rooting
cost?
for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. In
Yeah,
that
I
one.
wasn't.
I was still that whole Steelers thing was still way too fresh. Like I couldn't handle that. But yeah, I look at it like those late 2000s, early 2010s. The fact that Jamie and my relationship survived like the Steelers issue like is key. If we can make it
bit of
through
a
that, we
miracle,
can make it through
huh?
anything, right?
So I bring up the Steelers streak to see if either of us predict them breaking it, because to me, again, if you told me that any of these teams, you have any of these teams winning the division, I'd be like, okay, there are at least one that I definitely think is most likely to win it. There's another that you could make a strong case. The other ones, the cases are a little harder to make, but
I think
can
we're on
believe
board
it.
on our grouping. Like if we had to group them, I think we'd be on board with who we think is the favorite. Well, not we'll see this as it plays out. Who we think would be an also ran. Well, or like I don't want to say 1B, but maybe like a strong 2 with a possibility of being 1, and then a 3A and 3B.
So you don't have the foresight of being able to see my dad's picks.
Okay.
But I have him here, and I'll tell you that his picks are exactly the way I'm going to go.
Okay. All right.
So-
Do you want me to go first?
No,
in the
I'll go
fourth, or do
first
you want-
because
okay, then-
you went first last time, so I'll make it fair
Okay,
here, and
okay.
I will go first. And I will say that the Pittsburgh Steelers streak will continue.
Oh, you had me. I bit. Oh my god.
No, I'm going with Cleveland in last place.
Okay.
I
I'm
could
ready. The hate's gonna come.
sort of the way you just had the NFC North climb the ladder of wins. I could see that happening
Oh, yeah.
here. I think maybe a little bit better though. I had him 6, 7, 9, 10. You had him 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, yeah, I think this could be a very competitive division.
Oh yeah.
Cleveland, they're a tough one to make out just because of the Deshaun Watson stuff. Is he gonna? If he plays the way he did 3 years ago, they could be pretty good, and they could blow my expectations of him being in last place. They
Can
could
he
really
stay on the field
right, but
in multiple ways? Can he stay on the field?
they were 7 and 10 last year. I'm gonna put them at 8 and 9.
Okay.
But in last place, which is how much I like this division, how good I think they're going to be. I'm going to go Cleveland in last. They were 7 and 10 a year ago. I'm going to give them an extra win. You could possibly twist my arm and have them go over 500 but still finish in 4th place.
Wow. That would be a heck of a way.
Now
to,
again,
like,
I don't know if any of these wins work when
Right,
you add them
right,
all
right,
up, but
right.
I'm
But
just
if-
saying I don't think Cleveland is going to be a bad team. But I think the other teams
it
in the
has
division
to
are
be
better.
able to. It has to be able to work. If you can have all the teams finish under 500, you have to be able to have all the teams finish above 500. Like mathematically speaking, you know,
Right,
like,
it's just somewhere else. Like they're gonna have to
Right,
get all their
right,
wins
right.
against
Yeah,
the
against the
inner
other divisions,
conference,
right.
and yeah.
so. Yeah, in 4th place, I'm going to do it too. I'm going with the Browns.
Browns, all right.
Yeah,
so that's where my dad has them.
I look at Deshaun Watson there, but like again, kind of like the Chargers, kind of like some of these other teams where we're just like they just find a way to make it difficult, and the Browns just find a way to make it difficult. And I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if you saw flashes from Watson, but then you also see like the rest of the team's not there, and then you see the rest of the team doing well, but Watson not looking like old Watson. Like I just feel like that. Don't forget, Watson also had injury issues. Like he had knee issues. He had, internal organs like being severed from just getting crushed over and over again. Like I know that in part on the Texans because they couldn't protect him, but like I don't know. I know at the end of his Texans run, like he was really all they had in some of those. But I look at some of the things here, I'm like, I don't know that the Browns. I know I don't feel like they're the most talented team in the division. I don't feel like it's a huge gap and they don't have a shot. But like, there's so many unexpected things, and it's been so long since we've seen it from Deshaun Watson. Like so long. and also like he has a $60 million cap hit this year. Like it's hard to fill in the team when you have a $60 million cap. You know what I like? This goes back to the thing. Jalen Hurts' next 3 years don't count as much against the cap for the Eagles as Deshaun Watson's this year.
This year alone.
Now, those back end years, the last 2 years of his contract are big hits, but neither one are $60 million, I don't think. And the cap will be arguably $100 million higher by that time. And if it's going good, the Eagles will restructure by then.
Right.
Like, we can talk about all these different things. If there's a team who we have to pick, because we all said all these teams could win, right? But if there's a team of those four that you're going to say, this team has the most likely chance to find a way to lose the division,
it's the Cleveland Browns.
It's the Cleveland Browns.
Forever and always.
Copy and paste this conversation
forever
for any year. Any year. If
Until
there's
they
a
prove it
team,
otherwise.
right? If there's a team, and rewind a few years ago, you could have said this about the Bengals, right? But they've shown us, like we talk about, we've talked about it multiple times tonight. Show us. Well, the Bengals have shown it. The Browns have not.
Last year, I thought the Bengals could have been a flash in the pan and could take a step back.
Right.
They proved me wrong.
Right, exactly. They did what we said we want to see all the time.
I had them going 10-7. They went 12-4.
Right, and so I'm kind of that way with the Browns. If you want me to think you're not
play a game, right.
perennially going to be the worst team in the division,
right,
or in contention for worst team in the division, prove it. Prove it. Also, just as for something, wouldn't it be interesting if Baker Mayfield leads Tampa on like a quasi run to compete for the NFC South, but the Browns with Deshaun Watson are out of contention in the AFC North? Right. I know those aren't apples to apples.
No, it's interesting though.
But
I
it's
get
just
it.
interesting.
So my uncle has his picks, and they go the same as his quarterback rating, and this is an interesting list.
Oh gosh.
But it brings me to one of my points that I want to make. I don't disagree with these bottom two. He has Kenny Pickett last and Deshaun Watson third. I don't disagree with that
I don't disagree either.
And generally, if I feel like teams are close together, I give the edge to the team with the better quarterback.
I do.
But in this case, I think the team led by Mike Tomlin, is basically prove me wrong.
Right.
Like, you haven't been less than 9-8 in your entire tenure.
Right.
The team, I think, could be better than last year.
Right.
So if they're going up, they were 9-8 last year.
I
so
agree.
do I give a push? If Pickett's better, they're winning 10 games.
Right. And I think I completely agree. And I think it's fair to put Pickett in fourth place going into the season. But I think the potential upside, and this is crazy, and it's hard for Watson because, like, where are you slotting him?
Watson was a top 5 quarterback at the end of the 2020 season.
Right, where are you slotting him right now? But to talk about upside, because there's potentially a ton of upside for Watson over his last year's performance as well.
Oh, yeah, huge. He didn't play great last year.
Right, but, like, there's also huge question marks. Like, okay, who would you be more surprised? And I'm not saying to be better, but just to take a big step forward. Would you be more surprised to see Pickett take a big step in his second year, when you sometimes see that from quarterbacks, or Watson? Like, but he's older. He's with the Browns. Who would be more surprising?
Prime years.
Yeah.
He didn't play at all in 2021, and he only played 6 games last year, and he looked good in maybe 1 or 2 of them.
Right.
Now, I know, can he knock the rust off now that he's in a system for the second year? He's more familiar with it. He's back in the groove. Maybe, but I'd be more surprised to see him perform 25% better than I would if Kenny Pickett performed 25% better.
I think I agree. So while I think it's fair to put Trubisky would be
He's the backup.
if you put Pickett in fourth, I would agree with that. But again, the opposite of what I said about the Browns, if there's a team where I just feel like I don't know I can't explain it, but they're going to find a way.
We have said about the Steelers how many times
they're going to
find a way to not be the worst team, or they're going to find a way when they were still playing with Big Ben. He wasn't at the peak of his career, but they were still getting it done, still making the playoffs.
It drives my wife nuts because they could be getting smoked in the first quarter of a game. I'm like, don't worry. She's
Doesn't
like,
matter.
she is not happy about it. I'm like, they're gonna win this game, and then they start creeping in, and she's equally mad that they played terrible at the beginning, but also equally mad that I'm right that they're gonna come back and win this game.
The Steelers are a November, December team.
Yeah,
Like that's how I feel like they perform. They come out of the gate, they struggle, they might win a couple games and look pretty good, but then they'll lose a game. You're like, how do they lose that game?
Right.
They'll be hovering around like 500 after 2 months, and then all of a sudden November, December comes along, and they're right there pushing for the division title, pushing for a wild card, not under 500. Like that is how the Steelers operate.
right.
So Browns need to prove me wrong, and the Steelers need to prove me wrong. But Browns need to look better than I expect them to be, and the Steelers need to look worse than I expect them to be because they've both earned their status to us.
Yes.
So the Browns, I think they could be like an 8-9 win team. I think the Steelers could be a 9-10 win team, especially if Kenny
agree.
Pickett looks better.
I agree. Because
So-
and you know you get that defense clicking again. Man, like that pass rush was something crazy last year. And that's huge, especially in today's NFL. Like, you need to be able to get after the quarterback, and the Steelers could do that.
They've had issues with their defensive backs over the years. We've talked about it plenty of times. They drafted Joey Porter Jr. with the 32nd pick. They brought in Patrick Peterson.
Awesome pick for them.
Patrick Peterson, I know he's not who he was 10 years ago, but still.
They don't need him to be who he was 10 years ago.
And if he can help Joey Porter Jr. adjust, get ready for the NFL.
And this is where people are like, he's not the same guy. Yes, but Patrick Peterson at 70% of his peak is still
better than most.
Right. And an upgrade for the Steelers at DB.
So
combine that with one of the most talented DBs, in my opinion. That's bias coming through there, but like, oh man.
But they have TJ
and a guy
Watt.
who has a chip on his shoulder because like he went in the second round.
They have TJ Watt. They have Cameron Hayward. They have some question marks at inside linebacker. They're breaking in some younger unknown guys, but Tomlin will find a way.
But if you have to break in
They'll
guys
get
at
it done.
linebacker, having some experience mixed with high draft talent in the back end and all pro caliber guys up front, then your middle linebackers will figure it out.
So I started. So you did your 3. So I just did my 3. So here's my 2. My 2 is the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Last year I picked them to win the division. They fell short of that. And a lot of that had to do with injuries again, both defensively and obviously at the quarterback position. I don't know exactly what was going on with Lamar Jackson. Should he have played? Could he have played? He says not. A lot of people agree with him. Others are not so certain. Doesn't matter. He got the contract he wanted eventually, or most of what he wanted.
Yeah.
He gave up some, but he still got the big numbers.
Right.
Still one up Jalen Hurts by a small margin, whatever that means for you. Cool. He's happy and secure now. Will that translate on the field? His play might be as good or better, but can he stay healthy? That's the biggest thing. And that's probably the only reason I don't have them in first place is because you need to figure out what your weapons are going to be. And I think they've gotten better, but I just don't trust Jackson playing all 17 games.
Okay. And I agree with that. And I also am going to go with the Ravens in second place. And I think there's a potential for a huge season from Lamar Jackson. I know it, and I don't mean this just with him, but typically you see that in the contract year, like not just. However, I think the big thing is going to be the change in offensive staff there. I think bringing in the staff from Georgia, well, the offensive coordinator from Georgia. I think
Who
that
was
is
at
going
Army for a while.
I think that is going to help them so much. Watching the Ravens play on offense was like watching an offense from the late 2000s, and the league has changed a lot since then. Now, some of that's personnel. Like, they don't have the guys outside.
They've been trying, it just hasn't worked out.
Right. But, like, if they can get anything from Bateman, anything.
Right.
If they get, again, and I'm on this of, like, Odell's not the guy he used to be, right?
No.
But if you put him on the Ravens, Odell at 70% of what he used to be is
Might
still
be good enough.
Might be the best receiver they've had since Anquan Bolden, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and it was 70% of Anquan Bolden was good enough for the Ravens.
Exactly. So like, there are a lot of the biggest question marks for me with the Ravens are health. I think they've got a lot on their side outside of that. I still am putting them second. I feel like they have to have better luck with health than they've had the last 2 years. Doesn't mean it'll all be perfect. That doesn't happen in the NFL either. But like, I just don't see it going as bad. Obviously, Jackson's the key one there. If he's hurt the season, they could be in last place. If he's healthy, I think they're going to push for the division. I'm not picking them to win it, but I think they're going to push for it, and I think they're a playoff team if he's healthy. And honestly, I say even 17. Like, honestly, in today's NFL, I know it sounds crazy. You need the quarterback, but as long as it's 15, if they play 15,
misses two.
I think they're good enough to be okay. If you miss more than
They
two,
still have Huntley, right?
you're in problem. I think they do. Yes.
And he was Pro Bowler last year. Remember that crazy development? Yeah, so the Ravens in second place, I think they can go 11-6. So, if the Browns are 8-9 win team, Steelers are 9-10 win team, I think the Ravens are a 10-11 win team. I mean, technically you're supposed to go first with your number one, but they're exactly the same. It's the same for my dad. Who day?
Yeah.
So your son should be happy.
Austin's going to be thrilled.
Yeah, so after, I don't remember if you picked them first last year. I know I picked the Ravens first last year. I'm not going to sell short Zach Taylor.
I picked the Ravens because I think I picked the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl last year.
I think you did. I think you're right.
And lose to the Eagles.
I'm not going to sell Joe Burrow
I
short.
wish the Ravens would have made the Super Bowl last year.
But I have to go with the Bengals here.
Yeah.
And
they've shown it.
What Joe Burrow's been able to do in 3 years, and he wasn't even fully healthy in the first one.
Right.
They went to the Super Bowl, went to another AFC Championship game. I don't know what
signed
more.
His extension yet.
Not yet. Neither Burrow and Herbert have not.
Right.
So, I know they added another offensive line piece.
Yep.
They got Orlando Brown from the Chiefs. So addition by subtraction helped them twofold. They needed to improve their offensive line, and they possibly weaken one of their rivals.
Like what we talk about division wins.
Yeah.
Because it's a win for you and it's a loss for a rival.
Their biggest issue is they lost their two safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Big losses. Lou Amorano, I think I'm saying that right. I might be saying that wrong. But the defensive coordinator for Cincinnati is very underrated. He started to get talked about at the end of last year.
Yeah.
They looked really good, and they went into Buffalo and manhandled that Bills team.
Yeah.
Like, that was not close. And our friend Adam was super mad about it. Nothing, like, no disrespect to the Bengals, but mad at the Bills because they looked terrible.
Right.
Well, they almost lost to Miami the week before with their third-string quarterback.
They looked like what we said. They looked like they were just like a group out there watching Josh Allen do whatever he could do, and there was nothing else.
Come on, do something. Like the meme of the guy with the stick poking it. Anyone else on the Bills want to do anything besides Josh Allen?
Which I feel like you sometimes can see, like, that's like a high school quality, right? Like when there's a kid that's so good that
you
sometimes
just
the teammates
around
just
in
like
awe.
Just expect that kid to just do everything and win. You don't see that in the NFL, and I'm not saying that's what it was. It felt that way.
It felt right.
It felt that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Bills, but we'll get to them in 2 weeks. But I got to go with the Bengals. They still have an incredible offensive trio. I know running back, Joe Mixon seemed to have lost a step last year,
they've got the best quarterback in the division.
Best quarterback in the division, according to us, not according to my uncle, who went with Lamar, which was I was really shocked at.
So here's you go. Blind when you said, "Oh man, I thought you were going to tell me he had Lamar in last."
Oh no, he had Lamar first.
Just knowing it had to be like a wow. Oh man, that is.
Yeah, so I'm full on Joe Burrow, and honestly, I feel like I like Lamar a little more than other people.
I agree. Like I agree. I'm.
But I feel like Burrow, Lamar, Deshaun, Kenny is the right quarterback order right now in this moment.
Yes.
I don't really see Burrow dropping any lower.
Worry, the episode gets timestamped. We're good.
I don't see Burrow dropping any lower than 1. Like, I feel like he's I mean, he'd have to have a really terrible year for me to not think he's the best quarterback in the division. I don't see that happening.
Right.
Not with those receiving opponents. Not with the line getting better.
I don't see him getting passed because of bad play.
Unless Lamar
if
plays
Lamar
out
has
of
an
his-
MVP type season with
like he throws for 6,000 yards like he wants to.
like 50 total touchdowns kind of thing, you know?
No, yeah, I can
like,
see that.
And I feel like this tells us everything we need to know about the quarterback conversation. Like, I feel like he's capable of it.
Right,
Like,
it could
that's
happen.
absurd. But like, I hope it comes to fruition in the sense of like, I just want to see it. Not that I want the Eagles to have to go up against it at any point, but like in terms of like, I want to see the Ravens offense be exciting.
Yeah.
Because like, if it is, that's fun to watch, right? We've talked about this over and over. Entertain me. Like, and Ravens offense is anything but entertaining the last few years, most of the time, other than Lamar Jackson, like just running for his life. But like,
Yeah, certainly.
so like if you can put him in a system that works and you put some of those weapons finally maybe healthy in a system, it would just be exciting to watch, I think. So we'll see.
We'll see. So, how many wins for the Bengals?
I'm going to go 12.
I'm going to say 13.
Okay.
I think 2 years in a row looks really good. The defense, we'll see. They added Nick Scott. They drafted Dax Hill, 2 years ago. Now this is his second season
Nick
to
Scott,
step
who
up.
beat them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So they added some pieces. Will they adjust the defense? We'll see what happens. If they can get close to the level they played at the last few years and the offense is better somehow, if they can figure out what's going on with Mixon and that group, because Burrow to his three receivers is just unreal. And they added Orlando Brown to the offensive line. You think should be shored up a little bit. They were 12-4 last year because they had that one game that didn't count. Yeah. I think 12 or 13 wins is very feasible for them this year. So I think they're winning the division. I know we're not getting the playoffs yet, but obviously I think we both believe the Ravens are going to be in the hunt. If things fall right, the Steelers could be in the hunt, I think, too. But that all revolves around how we have the AFC East finishing, because those four teams I think are all very good too. So we'll see. We will see. Anything else to say about the AFC North?
No. I just feel like there's some potential for some like classic matchups here. Like I just think back. I distinctly remember being in college in Pittsburgh, and man, those Steelers-Ravens games were just like
unreal.
They were all on like prime time, and they're all amazing.
Yeah,
like
they were.
They just like would just it was crazy. And
Fantastic.
I know it's a different era, but like there's some potential for some crazy matchups, like Lamar against Burrow. And I know they don't go head to head, but like like just some of those. I just want to see it. I want to see it, and I want to be entertained. And I think this division can certainly provide that entertainment.
Yeah, the Ravens-Bengals games are ones that I'm definitely looking forward to this year and see what goes down. But very excited for football. We're, I think, under 100 days away from NFL action, which means even less for college action and even less for high school action. And Bulldog Hour stuff is being worked on. We're going to have a show sometime here in June.
Yeah, that snowball has started.
Hey, oh yeah, it's going downhill. In a good way. Yeah. And in July, we'll have a few Bulldog Hour episodes because our August is crazy. We got a lot to cram in here. We're going to have a show essentially every other week. No show next week. We're going to be celebrating Haley's birthday. I will have a show on Father's Day. Justin won't be around, but he will provide us with your East predictions. If you want to do a video, I can throw in your video.
I'll probably do that.
Or something, because I know you won't. You're away, and I don't want to ask you to do anything while you're away. But at a minimum, your list for both divisions or something else, because it's the East, you might want to, if you can do a quick hit video or something, and I can play that. And then we will have a Bulldog Hour at some point in June, and then in July 9th is our planned 2 shows from now. So 384 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show will be July 9th. That will be together in studio in person, and we're going to be welcoming a Wilson graduate who is a fan of broadcast and media, and he's wanted us to do a show. He wanted us to do a Bulldog Hour show on the Wilson basketball team. He's a Wilson basketball player. Justin and I couldn't make that work, but we said, hey, once you graduate, why don't you come on the regular show? So he's a huge Eagles fan, So
He's big, he is,
big football fan too. So we'll have him on to discuss NFL playoffs, get his predictions, talk Super Bowl. That'll be a lot of fun. So that's what's all in the workings here over the next month for the Joe Mays and J-Raff show and the Bulldog Hour. But yeah, a couple birthday shout outs from me. Happy belated to, so many people. Brent had a birthday a couple days ago. My Aunt Glo had a birthday yesterday. So did my cousin's wife, Amanda. And Haley's is this week. Kylie's is this week. Kristen's is this week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's a bunch going on. I'm sure, and I'm probably missing people too, and I apologize for that. But yeah, I think I gotta call it there. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but yeah, a lot of birthdays. And sorry if I did forget you. I don't have all these written down, but those are the ones I saw pop up in the calendar recently. And I know Haley's is coming up, so we're gonna celebrate her next weekend. So. No show from us, but we'll be back in some capacity in 2 weeks. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. That's it for episode 382 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show here on June 4th, 2023. We'll be back with episode 383 in 2 weeks on Father's Day, June 18th. Until next time, for Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. Woo-hoo! You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.